Okay, hello everyone. My name is Karim Honein. I'm the founder of Tlaloc Blue. Tlaloc Blue is a biotech company which is developing a vertical ecosystem to integrate insects, earthworms, and microalgae with the purpose of converting biowaste into value-added materials. So in simple terms, we take biowaste and we turn it into something positive like protein for animal feed and fertilizers. So the problems that we tackle are four. First, the very large amount of biowaste generated out of the food production chain, which is typically very rich still in nutrients. Most of it is wasted, either landfilled or incinerated. This also generates a large carbon footprint for the companies that generate this biowaste. In addition to that, the cost of treatment of industrial biowaste is increasing. These figures are from Okinawa. So they're basically increasing eightfold over the last 5 years. So that's also creating further more pressure on the companies to find alternatives to landfilling and incineration. And lastly, the food security crisis. Due to the increase of human population, we have more and more requirement to find sustainable protein in order to feed our animals. We currently rely mostly on fish meal and soybean meal, both of which are not sustainable. So our solution integrates insects, earthworms, and microalgae into a singular unit, empowered by our AI modules that we're currently working on. This accelerates treatment time by over 50% compared to traditional composting methods. We generate sustainable protein from insects mostly, and we reduce emissions and help companies in their compliance. So practically speaking, we're moving from a solution that we tested in the Philippines, which was fully manual, so manual measurements, and that's on the extreme left, manual measurements and manual manipulations. The purpose is to move to something that is fully automated. We're currently in the middle stage where we're automating measurements through a box which is filled with sensors to collect data automatically. So we're currently finalizing the prototype to have a nice looking box. It currently doesn't look so nice. We have sensors all over the place, but we have a software that works and which is based on computer vision. So these are snapshots from our software. The ugly part that you see in the middle is a mixture of biowaste, which is jellified. And then you have larvae that can feed on that. So this allows us to integrate liquid biowaste in addition to the solid ones. So our software allows to isolate the larvae, to count them, to identify the live one versus the dead one. We can calculate the growth ratio, see how active the larvae are, etc. This allows us to collect a lot of intelligence on how the biological process is going inside that box. So how does that work financially? So we have two revenue streams. First, we charge companies that generate the biowaste a competitive price. And this is actually advantageous because of the increasing cost on the market. We can provide a very competitive pricing. So we receive this biowaste in our treatment plan. So this is our first phase in a way. We own the facility, we run the facility, we deploy our technology there. So we charge those companies, we do the upcycling, we convert those biowaste into protein and compost and the certificate of compliance, and we sell that on the primary market. So we're currently in Okinawa working with the Nawamori distillery, a tofu factory in Okinawa city, and two companies that extract active compounds called fukoidan from mozuku, and they generate a large amount of biowaste, mozuku residues. Of course, this also has a very nice impact on society. On one hand, we help those companies save money by paying less on the treatment of biowaste. We help them achieve their SDG goals. But also in terms of food security, we strengthen food security at the level of the locality where we are working. So this is our plan. So we're currently at OIST Innovation Accelerator. We're developing that smart box and about to launch our first pilot with the Awamori Distillery Tofu Factory and the Mozoku residues. We're currently at phase 1, which means we have a centralized unit, a treatment facility, which we run and we operate. And the idea is to slowly move to something that is decentralized while we move closer to automation. We will be able to expand through something similar to a franchise where we sell the hardware and the software on a subscription model, and we collaborate with operators to further expand in other places in Japan and Asia Pacific. And then we can also start penetrating new markets by targeting different types of biowaste. So we currently work with pre-consumer biowaste, so things that come out from the factory, basically. We can eventually start working with post-consumer, animal waste, etc. And then we'll target chitin and lipids instead of protein for the animal feed market. The market is very big. So the total addressable market is over $470 billion, and it's growing. It's pushed mostly by carbon offset, insect protein, and microalgae, which are all growing very fast. Our beachhead market is in Okinawa. We're focusing now on Okinawa, both on the main island and also potentially a project with one of the smaller islands off of Naha. And the idea is to have a place where we can showcase our technology, but also the impact that we bring on the localities. We're competing mostly with insect farms and traditional waste treatment companies like Veolia. However, in our case, because we work with at the ecosystem level, we work with different species, we're able to deal with different types of inbound material. We're not restricted to one type of biowaste. This gives us a big advantage. And for the same reason, we have an array of output products, which also gives us an advantage. The team includes myself with a background in biochemistry and biotech, and my partner Laszlo, who's also working at the Robotic Institute of Carnegie Mellon, who is the head of AI. We met in Japan. So thank you very much. And we hope to reach a point where we can use those resources found in biowaste to upcycle and create protein and move towards a more regenerative future. This project was very much influenced by Satoyama, the Satoyama ecosystem. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Karim. The next presenter is Mr. Cosmas Deligaris, a technician at the Biological Physics Theory Unit of OIST. Please go ahead.
Hello. So today I would like to talk to you about the Ryukyu archipelago, more specifically the nature of Ryukyu archipelago, which has been evolving in relative isolation for more than 10 million years. So that has created a unique biodiversity in the area. And in the next couple of slides, I would like to discuss how we can and why we should be using AI and develop novel technology in order to protect this unique biodiversity. So in 2021, 4 regions in the area, they were selected as a UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site. So these are Tokunoshima, Mamishima, the northern part of mainland Okinawa, and Iriomote. And just to give you some numbers, these are home to 95 globally endangered species, of which 75 cannot be found anywhere else on Earth. Unfortunately, the environment is under threat. One of the reasons is what we call alien invasive species. So these are species that come from other regions in the world, and they usually arrive through transportation from commercial and human transportation vessels. They harm ecosystems, economies, and sometimes even human health. And they outcompete native species, and substantially, drastically, they can reduce the native biodiversity. So two common invasive species that you may already know in Okinawa are the mongoose and the fire ant. I want to focus in some emerging invasive species today. So these are rogue species, anurans. Rhinella marina, also called cane toad, Polypedates leucomistax, and the American bullfrog. They all substantially affect native biodiversity because they carry viruses or other pathogens, or sometimes they eat other native frogs. So that's why all of them are classified either the world's or Japan's worst invasive species. So a little bit of history. So it started in 1964 when Polypedates leucomistax was detected in mainland Okinawa. And since then, it has spread all over the island, and eradication is now considered impossible. In 2007, it was detected in Ishigaki Island, and again, it spread so much that eradication now is considered impossible. In 2023, it was detected in Tokunoshima Island, and unfortunately, there was a year before it got detected, and that led the Ministry of Environment to raise an emergency eradication program that continues up to today. Similarly, the cane toad got introduced in 1978 into Ishigaki Island, and again, it spread so much that eradication is impossible. However, there is a happy story in all of this. In 2015, it was detected in Iriomote Island. Thankfully, it was found quickly, and after 4 years, it was finally eradicated. So what that means, what does this teaches us, is that there is a critical time point past which, if the invasive species arrive and they are not being eradicated, they will just stay in the region because we cannot realistically hope to eradicate them. So it's very important to either prevent transportation or at least detect them at a very, very early stage. Then it's not surprising that even the Ministry of Environment has created some formal guidelines for construction companies because it's very common that frogs, they hide in some materials that construction companies import. So as you can see, it's mostly done by humans. It's a very challenging process. It's very difficult to detect frogs because they like to hide in dark places and they're mostly active at night. So for me, this is also a good example of how sustainability of economic activities does not correlate very well with sustainability of an environment. And we were talking with OIST Innovation a couple of months back. We thought we have an opportunity by using science and technology to make that connection a little bit stronger and protect the environment. So what we want to do, what we started working on since a few months back, is the development of an early warning system for invasive species. So the idea is we have AI-based sensors placed around Okinawa or other islands, and these sensors, they will do the detection immediately in real time. That will then give notifications to an online website, online dashboard that will be accessible by local authorities or eradication teams, and this will trigger quick eradication. So for frogs, this is actually very much feasible because the frogs, the male frogs, they emit a mating call to attract females of the same species. So if we can record their sounds, the mating call, then we can use AI, and then based on this analysis, we can understand which frog species is present in very much good detail. So I will play now a couple of songs. So can you play? No song, sounds. So this is the cane toad. This is how it sounds. Can you play the other one? This one. Can you play that? So we can detect the frogs even by our ears. But the problem we have is that it's not possible for humans to be in all the places all the time to detect invasive species before they spread. So the key research avenues we have, we're working on AI development, small deep learning models that can quickly do the classification based on the sounds. And then we want to load these AI models into low power devices that can do the classification. So this will lead us into developing a fixed, precise product, which are low power, low cost, long-term deployable sensors that can detect invasive frogs. And in the future, we also plan to expand into different species, not just frogs. We're also actively looking for partners. As you know, there are a lot of advancements happening right now in AI, and that includes in the Japanese industry, in Japanese semiconductor industry. So we are looking for partners to capitalize on these advancements. Very quick results slide. So we tested one of these small AI models for detection of invasive and native species. And so here you see the detection of these two invasive species, and the performance is quite good. We further plan on optimizing. We have our own tools, custom tools to optimize the AI models, and we further plan on optimizing these models both for performance and for speed. So our timeline is that we're working now on the AI model side. So next year we will start building the platform and the hardware prototypes. We will do a small test around OIST first, and then we plan together with the local authorities, especially the Ministry of Environment, to place the sensors in strategic areas that will be of high priority at that time to detect invasive species and further contribute to their operations. So this will both contribute to society and allow us to develop technology and get feedback for the technology. So before I close, invasive species is not just a problem of Okinawa. In Hawaii, we have kukui frogs that are so loud that have caused actual reduction of property prices because people don't want to live in these areas. Then the global cost just of the American bullfrog amounts to about $6 billion. And besides frogs, more generally, we pay globally hundreds of billions of dollars to deal with the effects of invasive species. And these costs will just keep rising because if we cannot detect them early and we cannot eradicate them, they will just stay forever in that place. So the costs will just keep piling. But more importantly, we are losing our environment. It's a one-way street. If we lose native species, if we lose native biodiversity, there will be no way to get them back. And with that, I would like to thank all the people who have helped us up to now, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Cosmas. Now, the last presenter is Ms. Saman Fang. Please go ahead.
Project with an investigation or cost effective to achieve Oh, okay. Sorry. Hopefully you can hear me now. Let's go back real quick. I don't know why it's playing, but this is okay. Anyway, so when I first got here to OIST, this is like the images of the beach in front of OIST. I thought it was very beautiful, but unfortunately, there was a lot of plastic just washed up on the beach as well. If you take a look at everything really closely, there's just like little larger plastics, but then this one in particular, if I can get the video to play, oh, I guess not. So like in this case, like you have like large plastic debris breaking down into smaller pieces. Microplastics are plastic particles that are smaller than 5 millimeters in size. And unfortunately, when those plastic particles break down, they can be transported throughout the ocean, get into a lot of marine organisms, and influence marine life there. Since the 1950s, the demand for plastics and the production of plastics has increased exponentially. And that is primarily due to shifting consumer behaviors from reusable plastics or just like glass or aluminum, things like that, to single-use products. An unintended consequence is that plastics leakage can happen, and that creates all the plastic that we find on the Japan's coast and Okinawa as well. Affecting living organisms and drawing concerns to the public of like, what is that impact on human health as well? So microplastics have been found in a variety of different organisms. So like oysters, mussels, shrimp, vegetables, and also water as well. When you're looking at human health, it's also been found in the human heart, brain, placenta, breast milk, and other things like that. So there's like huge concerns about the environmental safety and health. In 2022, Okinawan fishermen actually approached OIST, raising concerns about the microplastic content in tuna, so maguro, and they were curious about like if there's microplastics presence there, like what effects that's going to happen. So me being at OIST, we kind of started looking at the plastics in tuna to be published soon. But anyway, one of the problems with the current status of identifying microplastics in tuna is that there's no standardized method to look at microplastics in food. A lot of times the experimental procedure and costs are very high, about like $1,000 to $2,000 per sample. Something else is worthy to notice is that the tuna industry is also worth about $40 billion globally, and that spans across 96 different countries as well. And if we're just looking at the microplastic detection, because these concerns about health and like microplastics occurring in food and other consumer products, microplastic detection is currently valued at $4.76 billion and projected to grow to about $6.5 billion by 2029. I'm very fortunate to have worked at OIST, so that has led to a lot of collaborations in Okinawa with a lot of the marine biology labs here, and also in mainland Japan at the University of Tsukuba as well. So with these collaborations, a lot of people were interested in all of the microplastics that are occurring in marine organisms, but also in the seawater and like overall Japan as well. So a little bit more about what that entails, or like what looking at microplastics in different products entails. Usually, like if you're going to look at tuna or like fish or anything like that, you have to go through collection. So you collect it, and it has to be in a relatively plastic-free environment, so you don't contaminate the samples that you're looking at. So then once you have the collected tissues or anything that you want to look at, we have to go through a digestion protocol, and so that dissolves all of the organic material around it, around the microplastics, and you're only left with microplastics to look at. This takes a lot of time, and it can take 3 to 5 days to process everything. Once you've isolated all the microplastics, you can start to see like all of the different morphologies and shapes and colors of the microplastics as well. So like here are examples of like some particles you can see. It's very important to note that like in the environment, not only microplastics exist. So like it could be like salt, it could be like minerals, it could be like pumice or something like that. So a lot of different materials exist. And so like when you're looking at microplastics, like you have to be very aware that you have to be sure that what you're identifying and what you're seeing is actually microplastic and not something else. Otherwise, you'll have false positives, false negatives, and it's not very representative of the sample that you're looking at. So because of that, to identify if it's a plastic or not, we'll go through spectral identification, either through Raman or IR spectroscopy. So like if the there's spectral matches. So like if you can see this one right now, there's like a red curve and a blue curve. They look very close to each other. And so that is a spectral match. And so in this case, this particular microplastic that we see here is a polyethylene. So polyethylene is like, example is like a plastic bag material. Okay, moving on. So like, what does this mean in the grand scheme of like, how can we help? So this project kind of came out of research, right? And we're kind of going towards a proof of concept to make this into a startup or something like that people can buy or like have a service or a product. So the idea here is to create a machine learning tool capable of accurate and quick identifications of these microplastics and use it with using the labeled spectral data that we have. So like with all of the identifications that I've done previously with like all the different organisms, that's very valuable data that can prevent these false negatives and false positives. With the boom of AI, your AI model will only be as good as how accurate your data is. So it's very important that when we're gathering all of this and building the tool, we have very reliable data to train our model to be sure that what we're identifying in the environment is truly microplastic or not. Kind of more background about what we've done previously and what we're doing now is like during my PhD, we were first to establish a baseline contamination level of the Pacific oyster. So what we found is that only 2% of the particles that we identified in oysters were actually microplastics. But when we compared that with mussels, very similar bivalve species right here, there was a 10-fold increase in contamination. So that really reveals to you that there's species-dependent contamination as well. A little bit more information is that we are not only limited to just organisms as well. We can actually look at the seawater and sediment itself. So this is a collaboration with the University of Tsukuba, and we did a baseline microplastic like assessment of 15 different locations across the Japanese coast, all the way from Hokkaido all the way to Okinawa. So this was when we looked at like a lot of different particles, about 53,000 particles. We chemically analyzed about 21% and found that 85% of the particles of the surface water, so the surface water of the ocean, were plastic, and then 70% of the particles identified in the sediments, so that's at the bottom of the ocean there, were plastic. And what we found was that the correlation was that like if there was more rain or something like that, you would have an increase of microplastics. And rural areas were very susceptible to higher concentrations of microplastics as well because of like lower waste management infrastructure. And so that would lead to plastic leaking out into the environment a lot easier than like in the cities. What was also really interesting is that like aquaculture. So like any aquaculture, like fishing industries, like if the sampling was nearby that, you would find also an increase in microplastic contamination as well. And all of those microplastics that were identified composed of polyethylene, so plastic bags, polypropylene, kind of like the caps of water bottles or something, or like other containers, polystyrene, and then PET bottles as well. So like it was a combination of a lot of single-use plastics. And overall, this like information can inform a lot of policymakers to create policies or inform legislators on ways to limit single-use plastics, or figure out ways to manage that waste a lot more effectively as well. I mentioned here that we've identified these major common plastics, but we're actually capable of like looking at a lot of, or like identifying a lot of other plastics as well. So like in a lot of samples that I found, these are like a bunch of different identifications that I've found. But this list doesn't really is not that important unless you're very sure what you're identifying. So like going back to what I've mentioned before about false negatives and false positives, let me give you an example why it's very important to have the data set that we have. Here we have an example of a microplastic signal, and then a spectral identification as oil paint. What was interesting in this case is like samples were coming up as like a lot of oil paint, and like as a scientist, it was very unusual for me to see so much oil paint in the ocean, basically. And my first thought was like, okay, there has been studies that like paints from boats flaking off and like getting into the ocean, but the amounts was like unreasonable. And so that made me think like, okay, what other identifications were there? And it came out to like these other things called tridecanone standard, which is like a synthetic fat, and then like a lot of sodium salts. So that made me think like, actually, since we in this particular sample, like we had to go through digestion and isolation of the particles, another possible answer is that it could be just fat. It could be fat and undigested fat from the sample itself. And so like once we took that into account, that the spectrum that we saw previously was actually maybe a fat, the numbers made a lot more sense. And so in this case, like this is why it's important to have expertly labeled and understood spectral data. So when you're training your AI model, you're not going to be like falsely labeling something as microplastics when it could be more organic in nature. Another thing like that we've been doing, like since I've been saying that we're going towards like trying to make this as a startup, we've done a lot of market research, and right now what we found is that the market might not be ready for a whole integrated machine learning tool that can identify microplastics. What is interesting though is like in Japan particular, analytical and research companies that like create software or create databases to support researchers might be more interested in the project, which is really great. And then in Spain, and Portugal, there might be more interest with aquaculture and seafood as well. But overall, the microplastic and microplastic detection market is very volatile around the world. Governments are like, their opinions are changing a lot. So like something that I found out like 6 months ago is completely obsolete now. And then like that might be completely different in another 6 months as well. Right now, at this moment in time, there are global plastic treaties and debates about the future of plastic. I know Japan in particular has the Osaka Blue Ocean vision, where they want to prevent any leakages and microplastics into the ocean to zero by 2050. And so like being able to like detect our microplastics like from our coastline studies, and that really provides like a baseline assessment right now to be able to like see if we are successful in getting that goal of zero emissions by 2050. And so that's kind of what I have right now. Happy to talk later, but I would like to thank OIST Innovation, all of you for your attention. Thank you.